Welcome everyone to another edition of Just Unsecure. Before we go ahead, I want to say thank you all for everyone who sent us messages wishing us welcome back to the new series. We just want to say thank you to all the subscribers. Without even going further, just make sure you subscribe. Before we go ahead, I'd like to introduce myself, Babz, and yes,
I'm
co-host OO in the building. So, what are we doing today? Today, we have a special guest who is going to talk about information security and privacy. OO, do you want to do the introduction?
You see, I don't think I'll be able to do that proper introduction until we probably bring the guest. But you are in for a thrill. Is an expert in information security and privacy. So we're bringing Tobi in to talk to every one of you. Let's look him up. Let's call him up. Hi, Tobi.
Hey, hi Tobi, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Nice to be here.
Great. First and foremost, we like to say thank you for coming on our show, our channel, and it's great to have you. Yeah, like I was telling OO, we've worked previously and we've had lots of experience, and now you're an information security and privacy lead in your respective rights in Nigeria. So we're discussing about all the challenges and all the things that comes with the role, which I think you're going to let us know more about. But before we go ahead, for our viewers and subscribers, can you please tell us more about you and your role?
Thank you, Tunde, for that question. So, as is showing on the screen, I believe, my name is Tobi Olaniyan. And I would say that my journey started right even before I got into university. Right. So, believe it or not, I saw a movie about hacking, and that was what got my interest. That was what got me interested in cybersecurity, honestly, and that was why I started. My course of study was computer engineering because there was nothing like that seemed like the closest thing. I can't remember the title of the movie if you ask me, but I just remember that I was watching something, and that was what got me interested. So I studied computer engineering. In my year 4, during our usual the CWS thing that we do, that was when I wrote my first certification, the CCNA, while we were in year 4, right? And by the time we were done, that we graduated and we were waiting for NYC, I wrote CCNA security certification. So I had those before NYC, before starting NYC, right? So I think that would play a role in how I landed my first job after NYC, because after NYC, I got into Big Four as a cybersecurity consultant. Although I was a fresh grad, but the consulting firm that I started with, they had just started the cyber security consulting unit then, right? And so I got in as a fresh grad into that unit, and of course, for the next almost 5 years, I was consulting for several organizations in Nigeria: banking, um, telecoms, oil and gas, different sectors, right? And we are just helping them solve different challenges. So, but the most common thing was they would call us to say, okay, we want to do an assessment of our environment to identify security loopholes. So we go in and do penetration testing exercises for them. And that time there laid a proper foundation for me in terms of helping me to develop my technical skills and just that technical base
Wow.
on upon which I developed like all the other experiences that I developed. So I left the Big Four consulting firm, and then I got into um, the other organization. It's a telco organization where I became like the security architect responsible for security of a particular platform that they use in delivering services to their customers. So it was they built it so that their customers, which is the mobile network operators, which are mobile operators, would use that platform for delivering mobile money services rather, to their customers. So I was responsible for some of the opcos, and then from then on, I moved to another organization, the telco infrastructure organization, where I was then responsible for the security of the enterprise, right? So, and I've been there for a number of years now. I currently lead the IT security organization there, responsible for security of IT within the. So that's my professional journey. But of course, along the line, I've done a few certifications. Uh, just recently concluded my master's degree program in cybersecurity from Georgia Institute of Technology in America. So right now I think I have over 15 or 16 certifications, right? So
Oh,
yeah,
oh, you're loaded.
Interesting journey, huh?
yeah, so that's just a short form of my journey. There are a few things happened in between. I also partook in this Global Cyber Olympics competition at some points, sometime in 2015, right? Where we represented Africa. We went to Washington D.C. for the finals. So yeah, so that's a summary of my journey up until this point.
Interesting. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a journey, and I like the fact that you move in between sectors. That means you're well rounded from consulting to telecom to infrastructure, and then
Yes.
representing the continent. So we are happy to have you, and then
Absolutely.
I know we'll have a lot of discussion about what we can learn from you and what our audience can also gain from our interaction with you. Yeah,
Oh
Babs,
yes.
go ahead.
Looking forward to it.
Well, for me, you mentioned there's something. I'll just get straight in it because what you've done so far is like you're the kind of guest that we want on our platform. You mentioned some challenges, or when you say challenges, I'm going to say when you compare the challenges of back then when you started and now in your leadership role, at what is the difference and the challenges you see? Well, what's the big difference in those two? If you are supposed to categorize those challenges, and what are they?
Okay. So back then, when we started, right, the challenges were really about getting people to take cybersecurity seriously, right? Organizations. So financial services institutions could relate with cybersecurity then, right? Because of course they had to protect people's money, and we had a few cyber criminals that were already hacking into these organizations and committing fraud, right? But then, if it wasn't the banks, other organizations in other industries really just thought about it like a what's it called now? Like a nice to have, like it's not something that really concerns them like that. So that was the challenge. And so of course with that type of mindset, it will translate into other things like the type of budget you get as a leader, for example, the type of budget you get from your management in terms of putting things together, right? Even things around how seriously they take your agenda, the type of agenda you're trying to set, right? So those are the type of challenges then. But now I would say that has changed because, as we know, when you look at attacks like business email compromise, it's not limited to financial services institutions. Other types of organizations suffer that, and with that, you can carry out fraud. For example, with a business email compromise, you can have someone hack into a vendor of a random organization, pretending to be that vendor, and get that organization to pay them money. So attackers have found ways around that, and so a lot of these organizations are now waking up to the fact that look, this, or they have now woken up. However, the type of challenges that we face now is that the sophistication of these attacks, it has greatly increased, right? So we have a lot of, I mean, when I used to be hands-on, there was nothing like AI. So fine, maybe there was machine learning then, right? But the type of technological advancements that we see today is on a different level compared to back then. So with that level of technological advancement, then you see that the bad guys are also working hard to take advantage of those those advancements, right? You see, so that is the nature of the challenge. So the good guys are trying hard to catch up to what the bad guys are doing. I'll give an example. I'm reading the other day that there is now a type of encryption technology, right, where you can process data without needing to decrypt, right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, it can be used for good, but on the other hand, people can find a way to utilize such to do something bad. Or you find out about we hear about quantum computing these days, right?
Yes.
And then the fears of security professionals is the fact that with quantum computing, it can be used to break certain encryption protocols.
Absolutely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So with this advancement, I mean, we talk about how if we are able to achieve quantum computing, the applications is unlimited, this and that. But with this advancement, people are also using it to do bad, right? So that is a challenge. The common thing everybody's mind is AI, cloud computing, all of this emerging tech, Internet
Yeah.
of Things. But we hear of people hacking into cars and causing accidents, right? Even using artificial intelligence to carry out attacks, right? I mean, there's a good side of applying artificial intelligence to cybersecurity to defend against attacks, right? But there's also the bad side. So keeping up with all of this, I think that would take center stage in the types of challenges that we are dealing with in the industry today.
That's a great insight. When you have people who are right there in the industry, they give this kind of view of what they're seeing day by day and the challenges from everyday operations. And that leads me to the next question, right? I know in the West, right, for people outside Nigeria, maybe communicating security, as you have mentioned, might be a little bit easier because there's penalty, there's a lot of things attached to it by the government. But when we come back to Africa, Nigeria specifically, how do you balance that security, the need for security implementation or management with business requirements? Because if the business don't see the need, or there's no there's no fines, there's nothing, why should I do anything? What impact does it really have? So how do you manage that construct?
So sadly, you have to use a little bit of fear, right? So there are different angles to it. A little bit of fear. So fine, you have the maybe people in charge of the money. You are trying to persuade them to release money for some of the initiatives that you have to keep the organization safe, right? So a little bit of fear, showing them, and when I mean fear, I mean showing them examples of the possibilities, potential impacts of what can happen, right?
Yeah.
You are not able to deploy some of the controls and the security measures that you want to deploy. That's one. Also, there's also the thing about prioritizing and trying to balance the needs of the business versus the things you want to do, right? So I'll give an example. There's always, since information security started, since cybersecurity became a thing, there is always that need to balance security and convenience for the organization, right? So if you are going to implement a lot of security in an organization, there is that tendency that it's going to cause a lot of inconvenience to your users, to to even some of your customers sometimes, right? So you just have to find that right balance. And so this is where the need for prioritization comes in. So you have certain issues that you're trying to address. You need to prioritize based on the risk to the business.
Exactly.
How risky is this thing we are trying to address? What is the trade-off in terms of preventing the business from achieving the organization? Because at the end of the day, the business is, the organization is in business to make money or to achieve their strategic goals, right? So if you are now implementing security that will prevent them from achieving their primary objective, then you are now becoming a hindrance. So you have to find that right balance. And so you learn to prioritize. If, for example, there is an ideal solution, but it would have a different impact on the business, then you learn to look for compensating solutions or, workarounds in quotes that would help you achieve your security objectives, but would not also be a hindrance to things like innovation or helping the business achieve its strategic objectives.
That's a very good insight. I'm going to shift a bit of gear here. You have a two-edged title there: information security and privacy. One goes with the other. Nowadays, proud to that, we just have either your information security. Privacy is something that has come up lately, especially in Europe, where we are in North America and America. Like privacy has now become a very big deal. In Europe, where I am, we've got something called GDPR, which I'm sure everybody in the information security space are aware about that. From a Nigerian perspective, how does the privacy concern? Because me and O had this debate a while ago about privacy, and I asked the question: if all your details today were gotten in Nigeria, what can they do with it? From your perspective, privacy now and information security, I understand. Privacy, really, what can they do with it? And in your role, if you can just shed more light on it.
So Bob, you are about to settle a score now. Go yeah, please go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
So the good thing is in Nigeria, from a regulatory standpoint, we are beginning to take privacy seriously, right? Funny thing is we have the rules and the regulations in place, right? It's now application. So application in terms of applying those rules, enforcing those regulations, and even administering sanctions to organizations that are breaching privacy rules, we are not there yet. Sorry to say, but we've had those regulations in place. And coincidentally, you ask this because I had to do something where I had to do a little bit of research. We've had some privacy regulations even as far back as 1999 in our constitution, right? But a lot of people would not know. So there's been that requirement for privacy of Nigerian citizens that has been enshrined in the 99 constitution, right?
Wow.
And then you now see when NITDA was formed. I can't remember the year now. For the longest time, the that's the Nigerian IT Development Agency. They had always had guidelines, right? So it was not enforceable. It was just guidelines for organizations to follow in terms of data protection and data privacy. Before the National Data Privacy Regulation was released in 2019, right? NITDA released the NDPR, but because they are just an agency, it was not a body. They were an agency for IT. That wasn't really their core. So there were some challenges in enforcement and all of that. And then that led to the Data Privacy Act being passed in 2023, right? So there's a body and all of that. So we have
3 years after.
Yes. And those regulations, by the time you compare it to what like the GDPR, what you find in the GDPR, they are very similar, right? Same enforcement sanctions, right to data portability, all those, all those regulations. Then sanctions, you 2% of the organization's previous revenue, annual gross revenue, if they find, if they have found wanting. Even from the telco industry that I operate in, there was this 2007 Consumer Code of Conduct that has some privacy regulations in them as well, right? Pretty much data protecting data subjects' rights, right to data portability, right to erase their data, all of those things. That's as far back as 2007. Before the NCC now released, so they have now released a data privacy regulation in
Oh,
2023 as well. Yes, but this is tailored towards the
telecom.
telecoms. So yes, like I was saying, the NDPR was released. The NCC also released a telco, the regulations for the telco industry, just 2 months after the NDPA was passed into law last year. So with all of this, we can see that the government is serious about regulating data privacy in Nigeria. However, have they been effective?
Hmm.
There's still a lot of work to be done there because I mean we see stories, right? People's data being disclosed on the internet. There was a time, I think, was it last year or so? Some bank were opening accounts for people randomly without their knowledge.
Wow.
I think they got their. I can't remember how the phone numbers were obtained or whatever, but as part of efforts to celebrate some anniversary that they were celebrating, they were opening accounts for people. And of course, if we start talking about the implications of that, right? If one of those accounts was used to carry out fraud, and then an innocent person is implicated, that became a big deal. As at the time, I'm not sure if the regulatory authorities, whether they stepped in or not. I like to believe that they did, but we don't know what happened if they were sanctioned and all of that. So those regulations exist. It's just the applications that we need to improve on. So I think that we are getting there, and we should see a lot of improvements very
Okay.
soon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to manage. It's just like juggling a lot of eggs in that you have the
Yeah, I
government
think
privacy, NCC
exactly.
privacy, the implication. Come on. Uh,
I think sooner or later, even just to buttress on it, I think at least it's is a step in the right direction for in Nigeria in terms of data protection. It might be young, but they are moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
no.
right
So,
direction. Yeah.
you are going to ask?
Yeah. Also, what is said, like, it's been everything has been into work since 2007, embedded into only now it's becoming more serious, and because
Yes.
both banks and telecom have a lot of information, especially even the KYC
Yeah.
that both the banks and the telecom do is a lot of data on individual, and that alone means privacy needs to be taken seriously even at that end.
Correct, sir.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that is a very skillful, highly specialized role that you handle. What do you, in your own perspective and your experience, of course, over years, anyone that wants to come in into maybe information security, especially privacy, what kind of skills or maybe background or maybe it could be education, I don't know, or experience can they have to be able to combine information security and privacy?
The very first thing I'll talk about will be the willingness to learn, right?
Mm,
There is, we talked about how technology is always evolving. So at that pace, you find that attacks and whatever, and the loopholes that are being exploited are also always evolving. So to stay on top of everything that is going on, you have to be willing to learn, right? You have to be willing to just go beyond doing what is necessary or what is required of you, right? So that's one. Then also because of the nature of what we do not work in silos, right? The As a security professional, you're having to interface with other members of IT. You're having to interface with other members of your organization, of the business, with the leaders. So your communication skills, your collaboration skills must be top notch, right? For a lot of times, as a security professionals, you've identified an issue. The issue needs to be fixed. You need the IT guys to fix the issue, right? And you would be responsible for that issue getting fixed, but you're not the one that will do it. So you need to collaborate with them. So it's very important that you collaborate. So that skill is very important. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to get things done. Then, in terms of communication as well, you have to have good communication skills, right? Communication in terms of technical communication, then in terms of business communicating technical concepts to non-technical stakeholders.
Yeah.
So those
Exactly.
are very, very key. So those are important. And if you're coming in as a leader as well in this space, you need to be able to manage people, to groom talent. So those are some of the other things that is very important that would help you pretty much excel in what you're doing here.
There's a follow-up question that you said, which fantastic. I agree with you. That has been the experience. But someone might just be watching and they've not even started their career at all. And they look like, what is the minimum that I need to have to get it? I know
So let me start. Yeah.
it's a hard one to say, but I know probably you, because you've led so many people in the organization, you've mentored few people, you could probably say, okay, this is your lowest barrier to entry.
So, in terms of starting afresh, right? I've seen people move from non-technical backgrounds to cybersecurity, right? Both in my professional life and in my personal life. Like, I have a cousin that studied business admin in Uniben. He relocated to the US. He was a project manager for a while, and then he went to. He decided I wanted to switch to cyber. Went to a boot camp for some months and is a cybersecurity professional right now.
The will. As long as, cybersecurity is a very big field. So once you have the willingness and the drive to stay on course, I think most people will succeed in cybersecurity. No, like I said, great. And moving on, right now the world is changing. Everybody's doing remote working. There's a digital transformation in the entire space. I'm assuming that's not no different from the Nigerian working environment. How has the landscape changed from an information security and privacy perspective? And what strategies, should I say, have you employed in this new way of working?
So, COVID pretty much just forced everybody to do digital transformation, whether you like it or not, whether it is in your roadmap or not. So yes, and of course, there were certain things that had to change for a lot of organizations. And so for one of the things that that I believe everybody or most people have adopted in this industry is, we talk about zero trust network architecture. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it would seem like a buzzword to a lot of people, right? But really, what serious information security teams have done is to implement some level of that into the environment, right? So for things like zero trust, it's a continuous journey, right? It's not something that you just implement once and that's it. So, and different people have implemented that to varying levels, right? Even if it's just that the routing in your environment is being done using identity. Like even if it's just that you have an internal, like for example, Unified Threat Manager that routes where you can access within a network based on your identity, right? That's some level of zero trust because it's always verifying who you are, that whether you have you are able to access this resource or this network segment before you are able to gain access. So even if that's just all you have implemented. So what remote working has now done is to extend that, to blur that barrier between the internal networks of an organization and the external. Before remote work became a thing, right? You had the thing where you are in a trusted zone, so to speak, when you are part of an internal network. So, for example, you get into your office, your laptop is connected to your internal network, you are in a trusted zone. And when you're home, you are in an untrusted zone. So, to access internal resources, you need like a VPN to access, right? But now with remote working, some those things have changed, right? You need serious security teams need to treat each person accessing the organization's resources as though they are always in an untrusted zone. So every time there's that need to verify your identity, what you're authorized to access, and so on and so forth. And let's also remember that with remote working, there is that concept of bringing your own device where people can now access organizations' resources using their personal devices. So, of course, with that comes with its own risk. So, there is that need to also deploy controls that will protect the organization in cases like that where people decide to use their personal devices. And so that's why things like mobile device management solutions became a thing, because even though you as a staff, you are accessing my organization's resources with your mobile phone, I should be able to remotely wipe your device if, for example, that device gets missing,
So no,
gets
stolen.
stolen. So so those are the ways in which those things have changed. Then organizations have now done a bit of shift. So for example, one of the organizations that I would know that where maybe the Active Directory on-prem used to be the primary source of authentication, they've now had to shift that to the cloud. So they've now made, for example, so the typical setup, especially for organizations that had a bit of their IT landscape on the cloud, maybe they have their Active Directory on-prem as a primary, and then the backup is on the cloud where you now have your ADFS, your AD federated services, replicating your on-prem to the cloud. But now you find that a lot of organizations, they've shifted to making the cloud AD primary. This is just an example, right? So that anywhere their members of staff are, the primary mode of authentication is through the Active Directory in the cloud, so they can get updates, they can easily get, things like that. So those are the ways in which these things have changed because of remote working.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I hope.
Perfect. As in, yeah, man, you nailed it. You can see we are speechless. Is you detailed as you can be.
Yeah, it has changed the dynamics a lot because of that blurred boundary, and then device management, which you really mentioned, is because the attack surface have moved to users' devices now.
Exactly.
Because they know it's even easy, because there's not many solutions that can actually protect users on their mobile. Their laptop is locked down, encryption, but when it comes to mobile phones,
Exactly.
that is happening.
Exactly.
So
And
organization needs to change strategy.
with these things, users want convenience, right?
Yeah.
Me having my email on my phone is convenient for me because on the move, I can respond to certain emails, right? You cannot, so because of security, you cannot deny them that. You now just have to find controls to
Around it.
around it.
Moving on. I think we don't have. Do you have any more questions? Or I
No,
think
but
Toby has done justice to this topic. But I want to pick on one thing.
go ahead.
You said when you started your career, you were doing pen test and some hacking activities, well, I'm sure you're not doing that right now. But if you can, go and register. There's this platform coming up in September 28 to 29th. It's called AfriHackBox, where we are inviting Nigerians to come and try their luck. There's monetary prizes. I'm not going to say how much it is. Let them register first, and the winners will get something. So you start again. So like I said, if you or your network or anyone still does active ethical being the magic word, ethical hacking, please sign up. Again, all the registration process will be shared once sign up, but the where to sign up is AfriHackBox.com. We hope to get a platform running, like I said, in September 28, 29. And the vision of the platform is something that the industry will appreciate. It's not a one-off. The event is a one-off, but the entire platform itself, it's not a one-off. So if you have a look, let us know what you actually think. And if you can act, let me see if you can even still act. Try and do the CTF.
So I have, and thank you for letting me know, right? I have a few people in my network that I definitely would inform about this. But, when I speak to my teams that carry out, internal vulnerability assessment and penetration tests, and they tell me some of the tools they use these days, I just know that.
It's amazing. If you don't keep up with things like this, man, then you will get lost.
You will get lost. I've become really outdated because each, like I said, there's new tools every day. There's always something new, right? So for that hacking, I've not been hands-on in several years now.
Fantastic. We would love to have your community, and also a lot of people will be interested to hear from you much more. And if you can also spell out where they can reach out to you, I know probably your LinkedIn profile, you can just you can reach out to Tobi on LinkedIn. And later on, we'll still need you to be in the industry or with us, because we want to take your experience to mentor people that are not that are coming in, or that are not at the level where they ought to be in the industry. That's the goal, to grow this in this industry in Nigeria.
Oh yes, I'm happy to do that, and I'm just happy to do what I can to contribute to the industry as well.
Thank you very much, Tobi. And like I said, it was a great insight you shared with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch. And I'm sure this is not the last one. I'm sure there are many more sessions we are going to have. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'm happy to do this and available to get on any other time you need me. And thank you for having me.
We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tobi.
Thank you.
Take care, Tobi.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. As you all see, Just Unsecure, we always bring the best to you. Tobi gave us insights on information security and privacy, the challenges, the strategies, what's going on right now in Nigeria from a privacy perspective. Did I miss anything? Oh,
no, you didn't miss anything at all. He went deep dive into what is happening in the industry, as well as he went above to tell us about what you need to get in, how you need to be a leader in the industry, and of course, encouraging you to register for the next event, which is the AfriHackBox 2024.
Great. And before we all start moving, remember, if you've watched the video all the way to now, you are not going to go without subscribing. So hit that button wherever it is and subscribe. Thank you very much. From me, Babz
and OO. See you.
See you later. Bye.